Back. We lost our connection. Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, September 21st, 2021, and we are live. We have technical difficulties there. We lost our connection with Skype. So I was talking in mid-sentence and then realized that we dropped the call. All right, so I hope everybody's doing well today. It's been a hectic day. And we're getting ready for the screening and discussion of the documentary Haiti, the role of economics in the development of civilization is coming up on Sunday, September 26th at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, for more information, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, so I was reading through some articles today, and you remember we talked about the story in Pennsylvania last week, where you had an all-white school district that had a ban of books, and a lot of these books were books by non-white authors. Okay, and it's causing a big problem in that school district. So I saw an article today from thegrio.com, which deals with a New York school district that is reversing a book ban targeting people of color. A New York school district reverses book ban targeting non-white authors, people of color authors. The school board of Central York in the state of New York reversed its decision on Monday to ban books written by authors of color after protests from students and parents and teachers and a growing social media backlash. So we're going to talk about this today because we see a growing fear over subjects dealing with race and racism and slavery, the history of slavery, etc., and these false attacks on critical race theory. And critical race theory is not taught in schools. It is not taught in grades K through 12. So we see these false attacks on critical race theory. Okay, so we'll talk about that. And then also, I've been seeing reports dealing with COVID-19, and I read a couple articles dealing with this today, how the number of deaths from COVID-19 has exceeded, it has reached the number of deaths from the great pandemic of 1918, 1919, and 1920. U.S. reported deaths surpassed toll of 1918 flu pandemic. U.S. reported deaths surpassed toll of 1918 flu pandemic. So I've talked about this here on this show before. And I talked about this last Friday when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered. When we look at the Spanish flu pandemic or the great pandemic of 1918, you had 675,000 people who died in the U.S. from the great pandemic. Well, you have 675,000 people who died now in the U.S. from COVID-19, from coronavirus. But one of the big differences is that in 1920, the U.S. population was 106 million people. In 1920, the U.S. population was 106 million people. Today, the U.S. population is 330 million people. So you have right now the same number of deaths from coronavirus that you have from the great pandemic of 1918, and the population of the U.S. is 3 times as great. And I'm not really seeing anything. So when we look at this, the population that died from during the great pandemic here in the U.S., 1918 to 1920. The population that died, the number that died, 675,000, that was about 0.67% of the U.S. population at the time, about 0.67% of the U.S. population at the time. Well, if 0.67% of the U.S. population dies of COVID-19, you're talking about around 2 million, 2.1 million people dying, which means we're not at the halfway mark yet. Okay. And I talked about this here on this show before, because I've done an entire presentation. I've done an entire lecture dealing with the history of the great pandemic of 1918. And they went through a lot of things that we're going through today. They shut down schools and businesses. They were wearing surgical masks. They shut down churches. They stopped shaking hands. They practiced social distancing. A lot of things that are taking place today. So we'll discuss that also. All right. And then I've been reading about what's going on at the Texas border at Del Rio, Texas, dealing with the migrants there, especially Haitian migrants. So we're going to talk, we have some updates on that, some updates from NBC Nightly News, but also I've been reading about how there's been a huge influx of the migrants coming in about the past week to 10 days and what's behind that. Now, also, there is another group of about 20,000 Haitians who are in Colombia. There's another group of NBC News has some reporting on this. More than 20,000 Haitians are gathered in Colombia for possible migration to the U.S. Okay. Now, this is at a time when you have Republicans who are not just cracking down. I mean, you got to really pay attention to politics to understand this. Because I listen to some of this Simple Simon ass nonsense people say on social media. I could tell they don't read. Number one. And some of the commentators on MSNBC and even Black News Channel get on my nerves also. But you have Republicans who are attacking Joe Biden, saying he's too soft on the border, saying he should be harder on the border. And you have some Republicans also who are demonizing the Afghans who are being who were brought to the U.S. and flown out of Afghanistan. A lot of that had to do with Afghanistan translators who were translating on behalf of those in the military for the U.S. and they were bringing them and their families out. But you have Republicans, because I'm listening to Senator Ron Johnson today, a Republican senator from Wisconsin, who spreads a whole lot of conspiracy theories. Saw him attacking the Secretary of Homeland Security, but today. But when you listen to many of these Republicans, they're saying Biden is soft on the border. And then Governor Greg Abbott is basically saying the same thing. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas is basically saying the same thing as well. So we're going to talk about this, but there is, so I was looking at a number of different articles dealing with this today, a couple of them from Washington Post, but then also this one here from NBC News. More than 20,000 Haitians are gathered in Colombia for possible migration to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security is also tracking groups of 1,500 in Panama and 3,000 in Peru, and internal documents said. Okay. But then there was one from the USA, from USA Today, that we're going to talk about a little bit here. We'll probably talk about this some more tomorrow because we're only here for an hour. And I'm in this, I'm in a media class that Dr. Avis Jones, the Weaver, is teaching, and it really meets twice a day. So that's tying up my time also. Del Rio migrant crisis. Del Rio migrant crisis. How did so many Haitians end up at the southern U.S. border? How did so many Haitians end up at the southern U.S. border? And this is something, because I'm sitting back, I'm trying to put all this together. I'm saying, wait a second, hold on. Haiti's been there for hundreds of years. We haven't seen anything like this before. Not like this. I'm like, what's going on? We'll talk about this on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Stand by. Back from break in a few minutes. Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Stand by, everybody. Okay, who still needs to register for the new 10-week online course I teach on Saturdays from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. This is a 10-week online course, and we deal with history leading up to the Civil War, and after the Civil War ends, we deal with 1865 to 1968 to see what happened to us after slavery ended, and understand the laws and policies put in place to put us in the predicament we're in today, so we know where we need to go from here. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Stand by. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. Stand by.
African History Network show to deal with current events of history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. We have it all on 910 a.m. Superstation. 910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, September 21st, 2021, and we are live. All right, I want to jump into the story here, and also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the new 10-week online course that I teach on Saturdays from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement to Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Okay, this is a 10-week online course, and we deal with history after the Civil War ended. Okay, and we also deal with some history leading up to events that took place leading up to the Civil War. All right, so we do this class on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power. This is a 10-week online course that I teach. We do the class live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. Okay, so it's on sale now, $70 for limited time only, regularly $130. It's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, want to jump into this first story here. So, we've been talking about critical race theory. We've been talking about teachers fighting to teach real history in school, students protesting, saying that they want the real history taught in schools as well. So I saw this story here from thegrio.com. This is from September 21st. And this is out of New York. New York school districts, New York school district reverses ban targeting people of color authors, okay, non-white authors. And this, last week we talked about the story out of Pennsylvania, all-white school district in Pennsylvania, where they banned a lot of books, and these books were majority books about non-white people and by non-white authors. In a recent school board meeting, one member named Mike Wagner noted that the book ban amounted to distrust of local teachers. The book ban amounted to distrust of local teachers. Okay, now, the school board of Central York in New York, and let me see if we can close out some of these ads. Advertising this junk food. The school board of Central York in the state of New York reversed its decision on Monday to ban books written by authors of color after protests from students, parents, and teachers and a growing social media backlash. Jody Groth, Grothe, told the York Dispatch, quote, "We speak and listen to parents and community members to better understand and address concerns. We have heard you. We speak and listen to parents and community members to better understand and address concerns. We have heard you." Now, the school board reinstated the diversity resource list effective immediately after voting for the original ban in November 2020. Now, resources that were included in the ban included the Academy Award nominated PBS documentary, I Am Not Your Negro, exploring the writing of James Baldwin, and a coloring book for children that featured African Adinkra symbols. Now, see, some of this stuff, because I go through, and I only deal with a fraction on this show of the type of nonsense like this that I read about. You banned a coloring book for children that featured African Adinkra symbols. Did you think the symbols were like pagan or something, or you think it was the devil or something? I mean, what did you find threatening about African Adinkra symbols? What did you find threatening about James Baldwin? You wanted black people to think? I mean, you go through and look at this, and you have to ask the question, okay, what are they so afraid of? Now, in a recent school board meeting, one member named Mike Wagner noted that the ban amounted to distrust of teachers. He said there were no members on the board who did not trust the teachers to do their jobs. And second, we did not trust the administration to do their jobs when it came to the list, he said. Okay, he said there were members on the board who did not trust the teachers to do their jobs. And second, we did not trust the administration to do their jobs when it came to the list. Okay, so there's a meme here. Book ban at York Central District. Okay, so it talks about here the ban has motivated students, school, and staff and local protests. All right, let's continue. So in the wake of the ban, a website was created to support the candidacy of 4 new school board members in this year's election on November 2nd, 2021. The website read, "Welcome to Citizens for Central York District. Welcome to Citizens for Central York District," it read. "We believe that our district deserves qualified, experienced leaders who are committed to serving our students, parents, and taxpayers, not special interests or political agendas, not special interests or political agendas. On November 2nd, we have an opportunity to elect 4 pillars of our community to the school board." So, we've talked about here on this show numerous times this whole agenda, this whole right-wing agenda that is being fueled by Fox News, being fueled by special interests to take over local school boards. And Steve Bannon, who used to be special senior advisor to Donald Trump early in his horrific administration, white supremacist Steve Bannon, who used to be he used to run Breitbart News. Okay, Steve Bannon on his podcast talked about how you can gain political power through taking over local school boards. Go research this. That episode of his podcast has been downloaded millions of times. And this is something that is fueling this whole taking over of local school boards. And then what they're doing is when many of these white people take over, they're suppressing the types of books that can be used in the schools and suppressing what can be taught about history and slavery, etc. It's not just the state legislatures in Republican in states that have Republican dominated state legislatures. It's not just there, it's at the local school board level. So if you look at this article here that we've talked about before from NBC News, critical race theory battle invades school boards with help from conservative groups. Critical race theory battle invades school boards with help from conservative groups. In towns nationwide, well-connected conservative activists and Fox News have ramped up the tension in fight over race and equity in schools. Okay, read this article because it goes deep into it. In this one here, let me see. Is this the one? Yeah, this is the one. It's 17 pages because I printed it. I printed it out and read it. And this goes deep into it. So check out this article here from NBC News. This gives you some background information, and that's why we need to run for these school board positions and take over the school boards as much as possible, so that we can have as much as possible the correct history taught or more correct history taught. All right, let me go back to this article here. Okay, so the website went on to say, the website that was pushing these 4 new school board members, the website went on to say Becky Raick, R-I-E-K, Amy Milston, Joel Folcomer, and Corey Thurman have shown a lifelong commitment to community and public service. As members of the school board, they will always put our interests first. Now, the ban at the Central York District came as conservatives began to push back against critical race theory, a higher education philosophy that posits that race and America's legacy of enslavement is central to social justice ideals in this nation. Now, critical race theory is not taught in K through 12. Critical race theory is taught in law school and graduate schools. Okay, it's taught at the college level and law school level. It's not taught in K through 12. What this is, once again, this is a backlash. A lot of this is a backlash to the protests that were taking place in summer 2020, the Black Lives Matter protests and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And now you're seeing a backlash to all that, cracking down on what can be taught in schools about history, slavery, systemic racism, etc. Now, dozens of school districts around the nation have banned the teaching of critical race theory. Earlier this month, a Texas high school principal was suspended and accused of teaching critical race theory. As previously reported, Dr. James Whitfield, he was on MSNBC today. I think he was on either Roland Martin show or MSNBC, Dr. James Whitfield. Roland interviewed him a couple weeks ago. This brother, really the reason why this brother is why they're trying to remove him is because he's married to a white woman. He's African American, he's biracial, his mother's white. Roland interviewed him a couple weeks ago and went deep into this case. And this brother posted some pictures of him with his wife. You know, they were playing around. You know, it was like romantic pictures. And you had some parents upset, things like this. And I don't think the parents knew his mother's white, but they ain't like the fact. Apparently, they don't like the fact that he's married to a white woman, because they try to accuse him and say he was teaching critical race theory and all this stuff. He's a principal. He wasn't teaching critical race theory. You know, just more BS. This is what this is. So as previously reported, Dr. James Whitfield, who's smarter than most of those parents complaining, of Colleyville Heritage High School in the Dallas area, shared in a Facebook post, quote, "I am not the CRT critical race theory boogeyman." He said, "I am the first African-American to assume the role of principal at my school in its 25-year history. And I am keenly aware of how much fear this strikes in the hearts of a small minority who would much rather things go back to the way they used to be." How much fear this strikes in the hearts of a small minority. Okay. And he talked about how he loves all the students in the school, regardless of race, anything like this. He wasn't teaching critical race theory, but this, Dr. Greg Carr was on. I wasn't on the panel. Well, I wish I had been on the panel when when we talked to him, because I would have said the same thing Dr. Greg Carr said. Dr. Greg Carr said your crime was that you were married to a white woman. That's what he said. He wasn't attacking them when he said it, but he said this is why they're coming after you, okay? Because you're married to a white woman. Let me see here. This is okay. We have a tweet from him. Let's see here. Parents, students support and battle. Great. Okay, let's look at this. Families beg for Black principal to read. Okay, this is an article from the Washington Post. This is about Dr. James C. Whitfield. Okay, he's probably smarter and more credentialed than any of these parents raising objections against him. This is an article from the Washington Post. Families beg for Black principal to be reinstated after critical race theory dispute. Quote, nothing short of a witch hunt. Nothing short of a witch hunt. Here he is, and he's posing with a student. That's not his wife. He's posing with a student, okay? But he is married. His wife is white, okay? His mother was white, so there's a good chance he's going to end up with a white woman. This article is from September 21st. The Washington Post, September 21st, 2021. For weeks, parents and students in Texas have been fighting to reinstate Dr. James Whitfield, Colleyville Heritage High School's first Black principal, who was suspended last month after being publicly accused of promoting critical race theory. Students staged school walkouts. Their parents peppered the comments of the district's social media post with pleas to bring Dr. James Whitfield back to the campus. And on Monday, September 20th, nearly 36 teachers, parents, and students spoke directly to the Grapevine Colleyville Independent School District's Board of Trustees. A woman who identified herself as Stacy Silverman said during the hours-long school meeting, she said, quote, extraordinary principals like Dr. Whitfield are few and far between. The abysmal and racist treatment he has endured at the hands of this administration is unconscionable, nothing short of a witch hunt, end quote. So the town is a small city. It was, well, the district is like majority, if I remember correctly, it's a majority white school district. Dr. James Whitfield's battle with the district in the Dallas-Fort Worth area began during a July 26 meeting when a former school board candidate publicly accused the principal of supporting critical race theory and, quote, the conspiracy theory of systemic racism. See, this is what it is. He got accused of supporting the conspiracy theory of systemic racism. This is how stupid some of these people are. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Systemic racism is not a theory. It's real. In the weeks following the meeting, the district placed Dr. Whitfield on paid administrative leave. Superintendent Rob Ryan submitted a request to the district's board asking the members to authorize a move to notify Whitfield of Ryan's intent to end the principal's contract. On Monday, September 20th, the board voted in favor of the non-renewal notice, which will force Dr. James Whitfield to publicly defend his term before facing a final vote that will decide his fate in the district. Dr. Whitfield's existing contract expires at the end of the 2021-2022 school year. Dr. Whitfield has consistently denied promoting critical race theory and said that he is a target of political activists who want to block attempts to make schools more inclusive. He said, quote, there has been a very calculated attack for a long time now on public education, he told the Washington Post. He said, I think it's much larger than just me. I'm just the one who is caught in this particular scenario. The attack is against anything that promotes an inclusive and welcoming environment where everybody is celebrated and everybody gets an equitable education and is treated fairly. He said, that sounds absurd, but that is the nature of what we're dealing with. Read the rest of this article here. Okay. But most of the students love this principal. A lot of the parents love him. It's just a small group of vocal, idiotic parents that are trying to get him fired. It's just a small group. Now, the first article I saw about this was a few weeks ago from blackamericaweb.com, and we posted it on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. It's just a small group of idiotic parents that are trying to get him fired. We'll post a link here. Read this article. All right. Okay. And then check out the piece here from the Grio.com. But this is why we have to run for these school board positions, okay, to be able to protect our children more so in these schools and block this type of nonsense that's happening to Dr. James Whitfield as well. New York School District reverses book ban targeting POC authors or non-white authors, people of color authors. Okay, let me go to this next story here. We're going to go to clip one, Shakita. Just a second here. This is from NBC News. So I was reading, I'm trying to get my hands around what is the influx of mainly Haitian migrants. It's not only Haitian migrants, but it's majority Haitian migrants. And where's all this coming from? Okay, because it increased from about 5,000 last week to it was about 15,000. They deported some, but it went from about 5,000 to 15,000 in about a week. And they're crossing from Mexico to Texas. So I'm looking at a number of different sources on this, different articles, trying to figure out what's going on. We're going to look first here at, let's see here. I want to go to NBC Nightly News from today. Hold on, just a second, Shakita. I want to go to the newsletter. I want to look at this reporting here. So President Joe Biden spoke today briefly. He vowed to get the growing crisis at the border under control. He was at the United Nations today, United Nations General Assembly. He was asked briefly about it. We know that Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was testifying in the U.S. Senate. He's testifying in the U.S. Senate today. I think that was today. All my days are running together. Let me pull this up here. Just a second. Okay. So Biden vowed to get the crisis at the border under control as controversy grows over images appearing to show border agents on horseback chasing Haitian migrants. Biden said we will get it under control. When asked about the situation at the border at his speech today at the United Nations General Assembly, the images appear to show border agents swinging their horses' reins, R-E-I-N-S, near migrants. Some reports have claimed they were using whips, though a senior Border Patrol official says agents are not equipped with whips. Agents are not equipped with those. Agents are not equipped with whips. Department of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas said he was horrified by the images and that an investigation has been launched. Now, it's important to note also that there have been claims of racism and abuse and things like this in Border Patrol prior to the Biden administration also. So you have a systemic problem. Okay, you have a systemic problem with Border Patrol. I want to go to clip number 1. This is from NBC Nightly News. Now, this is from Monday, September 20th. DHS Secretary on Migrants in Del Rio, Texas. Officials did not expect the rapidity of the increase. Let's go to this clip. Okay, take it off mute.
Tonight in Del Rio, Texas, this is where thousands without a home wait to see where they'll go tomorrow. Still more than 10,000 migrants in this massive camp, mostly Haitians, surviving in makeshift shelters. The group swelling to nearly 15,000 strong this weekend until a mass convergence of law enforcement. Hundreds of state troopers in cars and Border Patrol agents on horseback, blocking more people from crossing the river into the United States. Del Rio Mayor Bruno Lozano says calls for help from the Biden administration were mostly ignored until it was too late.
I've seen just the desperate looks of the people just trying to get process. I mean, it's a completely dire situation.
Our crew granted exclusive access to speak with those whose future remains uncertain. This woman named Eva told me she's barely eaten over the last week, adding she left Haiti years ago. Today, Texas Governor Greg Abbott requested a federal emergency declaration, blaming the Biden administration for failing to enforce immigration laws and halt illegal crossings. Federal authorities say they've removed 3,300 migrants here so far, 327 deported to Haiti, others taken to different processing centers in the United States. Senior DHS official telling NBC News the administration will prioritize deporting single Haitian adults and families not claiming asylum, unaccompanied children, and most families asking for asylum can stay in the U.S. DH Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas visited Del Rio today, defending the federal response. Were there enough in place for this surge?
I don't think we expected the rapidity of the increase that occurred.
What would you tell the woman I met under the bridge that if she goes back to Haiti, her life's in danger?
We are realistic about the human tragedy of this, but we have a responsibility not only to the well-being of the migrants themselves, but the well-being of the local communities and the American public.
Morgan, there's been a lot of attention today on some of those images of agents on horseback doing crowd control, and there's questions over what they were holding. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Lester, White House spokesperson Jen Psaki called those images horrific to watch, but said she needed more information before officially making a comment. Meanwhile, Secretary Mayorkas here in Del Rio said it appears those were the riders' reins for the horse, but did promise to investigate. We're told that agents are not equipped with whips and ride horseback for their own protection.
Okay, so that's stop it right there. Thanks. Okay, so we're going to go to clip 2. So just cue clip 2 up, Shakita. So that is from September 20th, Monday, September 20th, 2021, NBC Nightly News. We'll post a link here. You can go watch it because they have graphics and everything. You can go watch that also. Okay, I want to go to, we're going to go to clip 2. Clip 2 is from today. This is Biden vows to get border emergency under control. Let's go to this next clip.
This border, 8,500 mostly Haitian migrants still inside this tent city, where questions outnumber answers. Who stays, who goes, and how much longer can they wait? Many beneath this bridge for more than a week, surviving on food and water handouts. Some even swimming back to Mexico to buy more. President Biden today addressing the crisis for the first time. During a border visit today, Texas Governor Greg Abbott blaming the surge on President Biden's more lax border policies.
When you have an administration that has abandoned any pretense of securing the border and securing our sovereignty, you see the onrush of people like what we saw walking across this dam.
Now, new warnings of more massive groups of Haitian migrants possibly on the way to the U.S. Internal documents obtained by NBC News show DHS officials tracking more than 20,000 gathering in Colombia, 3,000 others in Peru, and another 1,500 people in Panama. While the vice president weighing in on those images of Border Patrol agents blocking migrants on horseback.
Human beings should never be treated that way.
At a Del Rio shelter, we met Haitians Dirty and Elude Civil, the young couple expecting their first child, coming here from South America, and have spent the last week beneath the Del Rio Bridge.
I got to feed my baby, I got to feed my wife and all my family.
Dirty planning to become a barber in Brooklyn where family lives, hoping he won't be deported. With the Biden administration allowing most families applying for asylum to stay in the U.S. until their court dates.
How is Haiti right now?
Terrible. And if you were sent back there, what would happen?
Yeah, I would probably die. You can't in the street and you receive a gunshot. It's very, very terrible.
And tonight we've learned authorities have already deported about 1,000 migrants back to Haiti. And on one of those flights, sources say a group assaulted 3 ICE agents and pilots. Just the latest sign of rising tension from the border.
Okay, so families seeking asylum are allowed to stay until their court date. That's from September 21st, Tuesday, September 21st, NBC Nightly News. It's at NBC.com. We'll post a link here. You can go back and watch it in its entirety. They list articles there. They list information that you can research also. So I want to go to this article here. Now, I read this one. We're going to go to the one from USA Today in just a second. I read this one here. Amid furor over border images, Biden faces Democratic backlash on immigration. Read this article here from Washington Post, because Governor Greg Abbott, Republican of Texas, he's pushing and saying is Biden's lax policies on the border that allowed this to happen. But then you got Democrats saying that you have Republicans saying Biden is too soft on the border. You have Democrats saying he's too hard on the border. Okay, read this full article. Okay, it's about 4 pages because I printed it. I want to go to this one here because I'm sitting back trying to figure out, wait a second, how does this explode like this? What happened to all this? And you can go back and look at migrants coming through Mexico under the Trump administration. You see mistreatment with them as well. We covered that a lot here. So we cover mistreatment to humanity, regardless of race. Because when I was talking about what was happening to migrants coming through Mexico and they're coming from Guatemala and things like this, people were like, why are you dealing with that? I'm like, we're dealing with humanity. And there were some Africans there too. There were some Africans coming from Central Africa, coming from Nigeria, coming from the Congo, who were coming through Mexico as well. Del Rio migrant crisis. How did so many Haitians end up at the southern U.S. border? Okay, because a lot of them were already in Central America. This is from September 21st. Because I'm sitting back trying to figure out, wait a second, how does blow up like this? Thousands of Haitian immigrants. Okay, can we get this out of here? Hold on, let's get this video out of here. Does it have to play? That's from today. Okay. Just a second. Let's try to pull this down. All right. All right. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Keep watching on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. We'll keep going for a few more minutes, as long as I have some more energy. We'll be back tomorrow. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and register for the 10-week online course that I teach from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Also, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Right now, it's correct wrong behaviors, not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Okay. Let's keep going. Okay, let's look at this here. This is Del Rio, Texas migrant crisis. How did so many Haitians end up at the southern border, southern U.S. border? Okay. Robert said they did treat Mexicans this way. Yeah, it was horrific what was happening when the Mexicans were coming through during the spring. It was horrific what was taking place then as well. Okay. Thousands of Haitian immigrants encamped at Del Rio, Texas, after entering the U.S. through the Rio Grande, are awaiting either deportation from U.S. authorities or deciding to stay and put in and seek asylum, put in an application and seek asylum. But how did these Haitian migrants make their way to Texas instead of entering from Florida, a state that's closer to the Caribbean nation of Haiti? Because I'm looking at this, I'm saying, wait a second, they don't usually come through that way. This is when you go research this, they're saying the number of Haitians, the number of migrants, but especially Haitians that are coming through the part that they're coming through, that's unprecedented. Now, many of these migrants, experts say, were likely already in Central America, as powerful natural disasters and often dysfunctional government prompted a steady flow of out migration for more than a decade. But now climate change also plays a part into this. Climate change also plays a part into this. And what happened was under Trump, he ignored a report from Homeland Security that talked about how climate change was negatively impacting the vegetation in a lot of these Central American countries like Guatemala. And it was causing more of them to come here. And see, what happened was under President Obama increased the amount of aid that was going to Central American countries, so more of those people would stay there. Trump reversed that and withdrew a lot of that aid, which exacerbated the problems and the conditions, and ignored the report from Homeland Security, which was dealing with how climate change was negatively affecting those countries. And Trump withdrew a lot of that money, and it caused a lot more of them to come here. But now, with economic opportunities drying up in Latin America, as the pandemic continues, Haitian migrants are seeking asylum in the U.S. Now, Eduardo Gamara, professor of political science at the Florida International University, he said the end goal is always the United States. The end goal is always the United States. And the pattern is one that was not really, and the pattern is one that wasn't really begun by the Haitians. It was begun by the Cubans. They're the ones who set this trail. The Cubans, they're the ones who set this trail. Okay. Now, 2010 earthquake spurs migration. Okay, so we all remember that 2010 earthquake in Haiti, and Haiti just got hit by an earthquake, okay, basically last month or so, after Jovenel Moise, prime minister of Haiti, was assassinated July 7th, 2021. So a devastating earthquake in 2010 displaced more than 1.5 million people from the island nation, from Haiti, 1.5 million Haitians. Afterwards, many Haitians left their homeland for South and Central America. Mark Schuler, a professor at Northern Illinois University and president of the Haitian Studies Association, said Brazil was facing a labor shortage. Brazil was facing a labor shortage before they were building stadiums for the World Cup and the Olympics. Quote, Haitian migration was a solution to their labor problem. Haitian migration was a solution to their labor problem. Now, in Brazil, Haitian migrants were granted work visas for the 2014 World Cup and the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. Okay, in Brazil, Haitian migrants were granted work visas for the 2014 World Cup and the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. They were also able to obtain permanent residency for humanitarian reasons. By August 2020, there were more than 143,000 Haitians. There were more than 143,000 Haitians in Brazil, according to El País, P-A-I-S, a daily newspaper in Spain. Now, other South American countries also welcomed Haitian migrants, including Venezuela and Chile. In Chile, the Haitian population jumped. In 2017, there were 64,567 Haitians in Chile, an estimated 150,000 there just a year later. So in 2017, there was 64,567 Haitians in Chile. A year later, it more than doubled to 150,000 there a year later, according to the Inter-American Dialogue, which is a Washington-based think tank. But after the Olympics and the need for cheap labor expired, after the Olympics and the need for cheap labor expired, Haitian migrants were pushed out of Brazil, said Gabriel Apollon, A-P-O-L-L-O-N, the co-director of the Haiti Mining Justice and International Accountability Project. After the Olympics and the need for cheap labor expired, Haitian migrants were pushed out of Brazil. Now, the exodus of Haitian people fleeing the country can also be attributed to a staggering increase in human rights violations in Haiti within the past 10 years, Apollon said. The exodus of Haitian people fleeing the country can also be attributed to a staggering increase in human rights violations in Haiti during the past 10 years. Now, in August of 2021, the Department of State issued a level 4 travel advisory for Haiti, urging Americans not to visit Haiti because of kidnapping, crime, civil unrest, and COVID-19. Well, hell, that sounds like some places here in the U.S., though, just to be honest with you. But, you know, that reminds me of Capitol Hill, January 6, 2021, civil unrest, COVID-19, crime, but, you know. So Haiti's escalating violence and political instability prompted the United Nations Security Council earlier this year, 2021, to publicly express its deep concern for the protracted political security, constitutional and humanitarian crisis tormenting Haiti. The Haitian president was assassinated in July 7th. We talked about that here. Jacques Jonasson, a former special envoy of President Emile Jonasson to the Clinton administration, says in Chile, many Haitians did not get work visas because of the country's process. He said, quote, they did not obtain those visas. The Chilean government refused to give them the visas. And the reason for that is to get a permit to work in Chile. There's a process that is very lengthy, and most Haitians don't carry paperwork with them. Now, Haitian nationals were able to obtain tourist visas in Chile, but in 2018, the Chilean president, Sebastian Pinera, canceled temporary visas that allowed Haitians to move from tourists to migrants, once they found a job. Okay, now, Professor Eduardo Gamarra says it's probable that many Haitians were undocumented in Latin American countries such as Chile, Brazil, and Ecuador, meaning they aren't able to be deported legally to those countries. He said they can't even be deported to Mexico because under international law, you have to be deported to the country where you have legal residence, or a country has to agree to accept you. Okay, he said under international law, you have to be deported. He said they can't even be deported to Mexico because under international law, you have to be deported to the country where you have legal residence, or a country has to agree to accept you. And more than likely, none of these countries are willing to accept Haitian migrants because of their status. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic hit particularly hard in Latin America. Brazil, the region's largest economy, shrank 4.1% last year, 2020, and nearly 60,000 people in Brazil have died from COVID-19. So nearly 600,000 people. It's 675,000 here in the US. Nearly 600,000 people have died in Brazil because of COVID-19. Now, for 3 weeks, migrants have freely crossed the Rio Grande from Ciudad Acuna, Mexico, into Del Rio, Texas, a city of about 35,000 people. Del Rio, Texas, a city of about 35,000 people. Okay, images of U.S. border agents chasing Haitian migrants. Jen Psaki called the images horrific, and Democratic lawmakers demanding accountability. Mexican authorities have also blocked entry to Ciudad Acuna in Mexico, and will start deporting Haitians. So Mexico is deporting Haitians. Mexico only accepts migrants from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. So Mexico is expelling Haitians also. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas visited Del Rio, Texas on Monday, September 20th, and said an additional 600 Homeland Security personnel have been sent there. Now, Jonas Sant also pointed to the lack of persecution, Haitians from their government as a reason why they are being expelled so quickly out of the U.S. He said, if you look at the strict adherence to the law, both U.S. laws and international laws, these people coming in from Chile or through Mexico should not come at all in the United States, legitimately asking or requesting for asylum because there's no persecution by their government against them. There's no persecution by their government against them. So he's referring to the Haitian government, the government of origin. But Haitians pointed to the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse and a recent, the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse and a recent destructive earthquake, both this year in their homeland, as reasons why they are fearful of returning to Haiti, because it's a humanitarian crisis. They may not be, quote unquote, persecuted by their government, but it's a humanitarian crisis because Haiti is in disarray because of the assassination of Jovenel Moïse and the earthquake that hit after he was assassinated. Okay, read the rest of this here. We'll talk about this some more, probably either Wednesday or Thursday. But read the rest of this article here. This gives a lot of background information and background history of how it got to this point. Del Rio migrant crisis. How did so many Haitians end up at the southern border? This is from USA Today. And see, the other thing is that you got another 20,000 Haitians that are in Colombia for possible migration to the U.S. as well. And NBC had reporting today about that. This article here. More than 20,000 Haitians are gathered in Colombia for possible migration to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security is also tracking groups of 1,500 in Panama and 3,000 in Peru, and internal documents said. Now, the reporting that we discussed earlier, Haitian families who are seeking asylum here, the majority of them are being allowed to stay here until their court date. Okay, now it's reporting from NBC News today and yesterday, actually. Somehow that gets missed, because I was watching a lot of the reporting. Somehow that part gets missed. But this is a huge humanitarian crisis. U.S. officials are tracking large groups of Haitians in Latin America, including more than 20,000 in Colombia, who, like the thousands now massed on the Texas border, may soon try to reach the U.S., according to an internal document obtained by NBC News. The Department of Homeland Security document also said the DHS Office of Professional Responsibility, the agency's internal watchdog, is investigating an incident in which a Border Patrol agent on horseback in Del Rio, Texas, grabbed a Haitian migrant by the shirt. The incident, captured by news photographer, drew widespread criticism Monday, prompting White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki to describe it as horrific. In addition to the 20,000 Haitians gathered in northern Colombia, DHS is also monitoring groups of about 1,500 in Panama and 3,000 in Peru. A senior DHS official said it remains to be seen when and whether those migrants will come to the U.S., but they have begun, quote unquote, staging in the various countries, potentially signaling they are planning to travel in large numbers. Like the surge of the 15,000 migrants who arrived in Del Rio, Texas over the past week, most of the migrants in Central and South America left Haiti years ago. See, that's the other thing. Okay, yeah, you have some Haitians who left recently because of the earthquake and assassination of Jovenel Moise. All of them coming through Mexico didn't just leave Haiti. Many of them were already in Central America or South American countries, okay, and left Haiti years ago. Many of them left Haiti after the 2010 earthquake and have been living in other countries. Recent economic conditions in those countries, as well as what Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas described as misinformation about the Biden administration's willingness to take in Haitians, have triggered many to seek protection in the U.S. So that's another thing. There was misinformation floating around, really, that the borders were open. And then that's contributed to the influx as well. When DHS has previously monitored caravans of migrants headed to the U.S. Borders in large numbers, there has been a 2 to 3 week lag between their departure and their arrival. But many of the recently arrived Haitians took buses through Mexico, expediting their arrival and increasing their numbers. This is what I'm saying. Because I'm sitting back looking at this, and I'm like, wait a second, how did this happen so quickly? So read this article here also. We'll talk more about this. More than 20,000 Haitians are gathered in Colombia for possible migration. All right, now very quickly. Let's see this one here. We'll probably talk about this some more. This was something I was predicting, and it's going to get worse, unfortunately, because you have a bunch of hard-headed people. It's going to get worse because you have a bunch of hard-headed people And I'm not even talking about people who don't want to get vaccinated. I'm just talking about people who don't want to wear masks. Oh, you get a bunch of idiots. Okay. I'm not talking about people who don't want to get vaccinated. I'm talking about people who don't want to wear masks and don't want their children wearing masks in school. Okay. And then there's an outbreak in their school, and then they want to complain that their child is home, you know, and they supported governors who signed executive orders, like Governor Greg Abbott of Texas and Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. And then you look at what's going on in Mississippi. Oh my God, Mitch. Tate Reeves has a massacre on his hands in Mississippi. These are a bunch of dumbass old governors, okay? Bunch of dumbass old governors in these southern states gonna get a lot of people killed. COVID has killed about as many Americans as the 1918-1919 flu pandemic. It's from Associated Press, September 20th. And I was watching this. I said, this is coming and it's going to get worse. COVID has now killed about as many Americans as the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic did, approximately 675,000. The U.S. population a century ago was just 1/3 of what it is today. It was 106 million in 1920. That was the U.S. population. Meaning the flu, the Spanish flu pandemic cut a much bigger, more lethal swath through the country. But the COVID-19 crisis is by any measure a colossal tragedy in its own right, especially given the incredible advances in scientific knowledge since then and the failure to take maximum advantage of the vaccines available this time. Medical historian Dr. Howard Markel of the University of Michigan said of the opportunity to vaccinate everyone eligible by now, quote, big pockets of American society and worse, their leaders have thrown this away. Like the Spanish flu, the coronavirus may never entirely disappear from our midst. Instead, scientists hope it becomes a mild seasonal bug as human immunity strengthens through vaccination and repeated infection. That could take time. Now, see, one of the things that happened was with the Spanish flu, the second wave of it that hit in 1919, I think the second wave hit, I think it was 1919. It was worse than the first wave because it mutated outside of the country and came back, and it was worse and more severe than the first wave. In 1919, you know, one of the things that helped it spread was World War I. And 1918 was the last year of World War I. But that's World War I helped it spread also. It killed 50 million to 100 million people worldwide. The Great Pandemic. It killed 50 million to 100 million people worldwide. Now, Emory University biologist Rustam Anita said, we hope it will be like getting the cold. We hope it will be like getting the cold, but there's no guarantee. We hope it will be like getting the cold, but there's no guarantee. Let's see here. Okay. For now, the pandemic still has the United States and others in other parts of the world firmly in its jaws. While the Delta fueled surge in infections may have peaked, U.S. deaths are running at over 1,900 a day on average, the highest level since March 2021, and the country's overall toll topped 675,000. 675,000 Monday, September 20th, according to the count kept by Johns Hopkins University, though the real number is believed to be higher. Read this here from the Associated Press. COVID has killed about as many as the 1918-1919 flu. All right. Let me see here. I'm trying to think. Was it one of the things? I think that was it. That's enough for today. Okay. So read that one also. So that's enough radio for today. We'll talk some more about this because I add some more information on coronavirus. Okay. You can register. You can. We have at our website AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have the information about the screening. We have some information about the screening of the documentary Haiti, taking place at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. This is Sunday, September 26, 2021, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's a screening and discussion of the film. We had Dr. Linda Jeffries on this past Sunday talking about the documentary. And the documentary deals with the role of economics in the development of civilization. Okay, the role of economics in the development of civilization. And Dr. Linda Jeffries is in the film, Professor James Small, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Julian Malveaux. They have some brilliant historians and economists in the film as well. So we have the information at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. There'll be a panel discussion also. I'll be moderating the panel discussion. Okay. And click on the link here, visit hapifilm.com. It takes you to the next page. And there's information here about the film. Okay. And you can also purchase tickets also. Okay. So scroll down to Detroit, purchase tickets. Tickets are $25. That includes the film and the screening. All right. And the film, Hapi presents a snapshot of our economic history spanning from the dawn of civilization to today. It begins by investigating the failure of a consumption-driven Black economy, systemic poverty, disenfranchisement, and the decline of entrepreneurship. It later addresses its complex problems and provides innovative ideas to successfully compete in the global economy. And it deals with history, culture, politics, economics. Okay, so check it out here. You can purchase tickets. Click right there to purchase tickets also. And it's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right. Okay, look, we have to get out of here. Remember the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Be sure to register for the new 10-week online course I teach on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And you can support the African History Network here, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. All right. Here we go. Okay. All right.